Role of trauma in identity formation. Mm. Trauma can profoundly impact your identity formation. And so let's go to number 6, the role of trauma in identity formation. Oh my goodness. Let's just take a moment and breathe on this one. Mm. Okay, let's go. The role of trauma in identity formation. Mm. Trauma can profoundly impact your identity formation. It leads you to adopting of a protective or adaptive identity. That means depending on the trauma and the situation that you're in around that trauma, you're either going to adapt to it or you're going to adapt a protective mechanism to the trauma. That is not you authentically, who you would be if you were not under the influence of that trauma, right? And some people, because they have not been given the right tools, will never change that trauma identity. Even though it's an illusion, they still walk with that trauma identity on their shoulders, and they never get to know who their true self is. And those protective, adaptive identities that we create under trauma, for many of us, it doesn't reflect our true selves. And so when we experience trauma, we develop coping mechanisms that shape our identity in ways that prioritize survival, right, over authenticity. Because now we're living a more reactive through a more reactive identity and environment. And so we have to create identities that help us survive. And often those identities are not norms in the real world. They're not norms in a place where you don't have to face that trauma. And so this is a clear demarcation between authenticity and identity. This is where you can clearly see illusions of identity. When you're talking about identity formed through trauma and the mechanisms that shape the identity so that we can survive, right? And so these trauma-based identities can be difficult to shed. I mean, when I say difficult, extremely difficult, because there's psychological trauma behind it, there's emotional trauma behind it, and in most cases, there's physical trauma behind it. And we live in that reality. We don't know how to strip that reality from our existence because we've not been given the right tools on how we can influence who we are and our behavior and our identities. And so oftentimes when we try to move out of those identities, we experience a crisis. Why? Because that crisis is that, wow, I've created this identity in a trauma environment and I created it to protect me. So I use this throughout my life. And if I go outside of it, I feel unprotected. I feel unstable. I feel vulnerable. I feel fear. I feel afraid to interact with people because if I don't have this protected persona, then I become susceptible to others' trauma and abuse. And that's illusionary because every environment that you're in is not trauma induced. And so When you're given the right tools, you have to know that you have control over your life. You have control over who you are and who you want to be. You do not have to live in these boxed identities that everything around us tells us this is who you are. And so there's pain in it, even addressing it. Also deconstructing that identity. When we deconstruct identities, we feel so much pain because we feel like we're shedding our true authentic selves. And we're afraid of the unknown person. We're afraid of the unknown identity. We're afraid of that identity that we're unfamiliar with. We're afraid of our authentic self because it's a different self. So it feels like a different identity or even a different entity than who we are. This is serious stuff. And so the illusion of identity is very strong in our lives. And so even the pain of deconstructing these identities, they've been built around. We allow for the emergence of a more authentic self. If we're going to deconstruct this identity, we have to know that there will be another self that emerges. Who is going to control that self? Who is going to devise or design or create or mold or normalize that self? Who's going to do that? Is the shadow self that you have become under trauma? Is that inauthentic self? Is that going to create your new identity? Yes, it is. But it's only going to help you create that identity by giving you a mirror of what you don't want to be. And so let's go to number 7. This is where we can start to understand that our social structures, our cultures, our families, the pressures that are around us, the trauma that is around us, all of these different mechanisms that we previously talked about that can create illusions of identity. We can now start to look towards some tools and some ideas and some areas in our life that we can start to work on becoming more authentically ourselves. And so let's talk about the journey of self-discovery, the process of stripping away externally imposed identities to uncover our authentic selves. That's a journey of self-discovery. It does not matter, and in a way it does, because we live in a world where we have polarity, where the opposites attract, the negative and the positives. But let's say this, that when you start to say that you're on a journey, most of us, I would say 99.9% of the people on the planet have been taught that a spiritual journey or a journey towards authenticity is a journey of self-discovery. It is, because whether that journey takes on a spiritual perspective, a religious perspective, or whether that journey takes on a journey where we're stripping relationships, deconstructing certain areas of our life, yes, it's a journey of self-discovery. No matter what the theme of that journey is, the outcome is self-discovery. And so this journey requires introspection, self-reflection, and a willingness to question the beliefs and values that have been internalized over time. What have you been taught to believe about yourself? What do you believe about yourself? What do you even know about yourself? Are you okay with yourself? Do you like yourself? Do you get along with yourself? How do you treat yourself? The illusion of identity. How do you treat the person that you think that you are? Right? And so what happens is when we start to deconstruct our identities, it involves peeling back the layers of conditioning to reveal the core itself. Most of us don't like the core. I am a transformation specialist. What my job is, and what I do, and what I have realized that my purpose for being here is to help restore people to their center of gravity, their core center of gravity. And I do that with all of the authenticity, with all of the creativity and all of my ability to help shift people's mind into getting to the core identity of who they are. And so, while this journey can be challenging and comfortable and uncomfortable, the journey to self-identity, it's essential. It is one of the most essential tools for achieving even just a sense of your self-awareness and personal fulfillment. When you begin the journey, you're beginning the journey specifically because you have had an awareness, you have had an awakening. You have had a expansion of your consciousness that says, wait, something's wrong here. The person that I am is not who I want to be. It doesn't even feel authentic to me. When I look in the mirror, I cannot look at myself because I don't recognize the person that I'm looking at. It has to be an imposter, right? And so we find ourselves battling with our own identities. We don't even need all the external battles from coming from other people, from cultures, societies, and norms, and families and friends. We are enough of a battle by ourselves. And so, the role, number 8, the role of authenticity in identity. What is authenticity? We talk about authenticity so much until we are just inundated with definitions of what authenticity is. I'm just going to add to it. I'm just going to add to what authenticity is from my perspective. And so authenticity is the key to a fulfilling and meaningful life. When individuals live authentically, we align our actions, values, and beliefs with our true selves rather than conforming to external expectations. And that's a lot because those are a lot of things that are informing us and influencing our identity. Values, where do we get our values from? Where do we get our beliefs from? Right? Where do we get our action, how we're supposed to act? Where do these programmings, these conditionings originate? Because anytime you are conflicted internally, then that means you have taken on a conditioned experience that you need to shed, right? And so this alignment, when you finally decide, okay, I'm going to get rid of all the places that I've conformed that I can recognize in this present moment, identities and experiences and values and morals and norms and expectations and acts and how I act, how I interact with people. I am going to get to the core of that. And when I arrive at the core of that, I can decide if it's something I want to continue in or if I sense a need to change from the inside. And so when you align yourself in this way, it gives you a deeper connection to yourself. Now, if you're not deeply connected to yourself, there is no way that you can be deeply connected to someone else, except in inauthenticity. When we are in relationships with other people and we carry personas, we put on personas around these people and we act we conform to what they're requiring of us, we're not having a deep connection with them. There's no way. How can you have a deep connection with somebody when you're performing and you're interacting with them in a very shallow, inauthentic way? Most of our relationships are in trouble because we're not authentic in them. We don't present our values, our morals. We don't conform to our expectations of ourselves. And sometimes expectations that other people have of us can be higher than the ones we have of ourselves. Why? Because we have been conditioned to reject ourselves in most cases, to have low self esteem. All of this is part of our identity. And so, however, living authentically often requires courage. You have to have courage. The theme that is a part of my life is when we are afraid to challenge, right? Beliefs that we have held for so long, we give fear overwhelming power. Why? Because fear tells us how we're going to act next. It tells us what we're going to expect and what we're going to expect from others. And it tells us whether or not the identities that we're thinking about conforming to will work. And based on our conditioning, we will respond to fear based on that. And most of us will go right back into that inauthentic self. We'll go right back into our relationships being inauthentic, but craving something real from the inside, craving it from someone else, when in actuality, the reason we're craving it because it's missing from our own lives and others cannot give that to us. We have to give it to ourselves. We have to gift ourselves authenticity. So, what is number 9? The impact of modern technology on identity. Oh, wow. This is something, is it not? The impact of modern technology on identity. So we're living in a digital age of technology, right? And so technology plays a significant role in shaping our identity. It helps us. Technology can help us. Sometimes machines can answer you more authentically than you can present them with a question. Social media platforms, in particular, have a major impact on our identity. We got filters. We got machines that can change the way we sound, and we now have AI that can create an actual avatar of us, and you never know if you're listening to the authentic, real person or you're listening to their avatar. We have so much that is trying to replace us because we are not empowered to understand how to place these other things in our life. And so social media platforms in particular create environments where we can curate and present idolized selves. We can, my goodness, we can be whoever we want to be on social media. People will never get to know who we are because most of them will never meet us in person. Often when someone knows who you are, it's because you have presented something other than what you're presenting on social media. In other words, you may have moved away from that that persona that is false, that mask that doesn't work, and you may have even let your guard down at some point. One of the things I find out is that when you've been on social media for a long time, you're a social media influence, you do run into a crisis of identity. Just about every major social media icon or social media influencer has had a video that they've put up where they have stripped all of the persona and they said, listen, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore, because you cannot wear the same clothes all of your life. You cannot sit in a mask all of your life. At some point, you got to take it off. And the circumstances and the way that the universe and consciousness and awareness works is that at some point, the shadow self that is hidden and covered up by that persona that you put on every day, it's going to break through. And sometimes it breaks through in embarrassing ways. I have seen social media influencers crying on social media, struggling, asking for help, asking for people to pray for them, or asking people to give them a moment where they could take a break. Why are you asking for that? Because you feel like someone else is controlling your life instead of you. And often, as a social media influencer, social media technology is influencing your identity. And so these identities, they reflect societal ideas rather than our true selves. They reflect what the platform wants rather than ourselves. These platforms out here won't even put your information in the lineup unless you conform to a specific identity, or you present a specific type of information, or you present yourself in a way that is sellable to your audience, right? And so the constant comparison with others, this is a major thing. Most of us follow influencers, and every day we sit, as soon as they put something up, we're right there. Oh God, I wish I was you. Oh, I wish I had your money. Oh, can you send me $5? And the people start pleading in the comment section. This is our reality. You're pleading to a machine who is projecting a video often that is not live, it's pre-recorded, and you're so convinced that that is an identity that you want to personify that you treat the screens as if it's a person, a real identity. This is delusional. This is the illusion of identity. Yes, identity is fluid, but we should always be working towards the most authentic identity that we can. We should always be checking into the core of our identity. Where's our core, right? And so this requires mindfulness and a conscious effort to maintain authenticity in both digital and real world interactions. And we're on our way to number 10, the liberation of identity. Whew, this one here, this is going to be one of the tools that you're going to be using every time you find yourself in an inauthentic place. And I want to take a moment here to just ask you to please like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel and to this video to help us bring you more information like this. We would love to service you, and we would love to be of service to you in this area, because out of all of the many channels and all of the many things that you watch, very few people are helping you understand who you are authentically. Very few people are stripping away the matrix. Very few people are helping you transform into an authentic self, one that you can look in the mirror with. And that's what we do on this channel. So I'm asking you to please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to this channel. And when you subscribe, be sure to interact. Talk back to us. Tell us what it is that you want to see. Tell us whether or not this video was helpful for you or not. And so let's move on to number 10, the liberation of identity. How do you liberate your identity? You liberate your identity through deconstruction and deconstructing externally imposed identities, and that can be a liberating experience. You have to become the architect of your own identity. And the way you do that is you have first got to determine if the identity that you have needs to be demolished and completely restructured, if that identity needs to be renovated, where you can keep the parameters of who you are, but there's some internal experiences that you need to deal with. And so you should always constantly be in a liberation of identity where you are constantly saying, this thing is trying to attach itself to me, but I am not that. I am not the trauma. I am not the abuse. I am not my family. I am not my peers. I am not the norms and values that society considers norms and values, because often norms and values don't benefit the individual. It benefits society. It benefits the culture. It benefits the community. It doesn't benefit you as an individual. And in order for you to be authentic with the community and society, you have to be authentic as an individual. And so it allows being having an identity where you are always where you are liberating your identity. This process of deconstruction involves questioning the origins of your beliefs. As we stated earlier, when you go on this journey, questioning your values and behaviors and consciously choosing which aspects to retain and which to disregard. So by serving and by shedding yourself, the layers of identity that no longer serve you, we can experience a profound sense of freedom, transformation, and empowerment. This liberation opens the doors to all kinds of possibilities. It removes fear. It removes conditioning, right? And a more authentic way of the world begins. You begin to take off the blinders. Your reality shifts. Your expectations, even of yourself, begin to shift because now you are matching them to the identity, the authentic person that you are. I am a transformation specialist. That is what I do. And so everything that I do in my life, every place that I go, every person I interact with, I am walking in that identity. Not as a role, but that is who I am. That is what I present to this reality. It's tools for transformation. I am walking transformation. I live, eat, and sleep that, because that is what I want you to see when you interact with me. If at some point in my life I find this to be an inauthentic reality for me, I will change it. Because as we learned in the beginning, identity is fluid, it is not stable. So thank you very much for watching. We appreciate you and we hope that you will come back. We know that you will come back because we know that this video has helped you at some place in your life. We know that it is a tool that you can come back to over and over and over again when you need reinforcements or when you need to be re-encouraged. You can come back here and you can watch this video and you can find ways to help you restore your center of gravity, to go back to your core. Thank you so much for watching. I am Dr. Dorothy Parker. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Mind Over Matrix.